hasn't given him. When you see a chicken, for example, just wants to eat and sleep and just enjoy life, does it really have any goals? No, of course. Why? Because Allah created it in that way. I, the human being, have aql, have intellect, but yet I live like an animal, meaning all I care about is my shahawats, my desires. That makes me worse than an animal. And finally, page 8 slash page 9, the author, he says that the science, now we understand that the science of akhlaq that we're studying is the most exalted science there is. If we put all of the sciences next to each other, medicine, physics, chemistry, everything else, and also the religious ones, so put the science of learning Quran, Hadith, Rijal, Fiqh, Usul, Aqa'id, all these things together, Akhlaq is the most exalted one. Why? For two reasons. Number one, because the subject of ilm al-akhlaq is what? What do we really study? The human being, the soul, right? And he says the soul is more important than the body. And in the science of medicine, you study the body, the physical body, correct? Ilm al-akhlaq, we study the soul, the spirit. The spirit and the soul is much more exalted. It's much greater than the body, because the body is just a physical, outfit that the soul uses. That's why when we die, we lose the body, but the soul stays. So in medicine, you're studying the body. In akhlaq, you're studying the soul. The body decays and goes, the soul stays. So since in ilm al-akhlaq, we are studying the most exalted thing in the world, and that is my spirit, then obviously that makes it the most exalted of sciences. And then he mentions another point. He says, without akhlaq, listen carefully, brothers and sisters. I know many of you, in addition to joining this class, you have joined many other classes in this house. And this is a point that my teachers taught me the first year I came to house. And they told me this point, that now you may be taking fiqh, you may be taking history of Rasulullah, biography of Imam al-Sadiq, you may be taking other courses, Quran. But listen to this, the author says this, and this should truly affect me. This should truly have an impact upon me. He says that learning any other science without akhlaq, if I don't learn akhlaq, or I don't have akhlaq, I don't apply it, learning any other science, even an Islamic science, is worthless. It's a waste of time. If I say, I don't need akhlaq, and I don't apply these teachings, and I don't care about akhlaq, and then I go study fiqh, I go study Quran, he says this is a complete waste of time, because the most important entity in my life, which is my soul, is not purified. How can you take a knowledge and place it inside a soul that is corrupt? What's the point? Gaining any other knowledge will not be helpful. In fact, listen to this point. And this is what I want you, brothers and sisters, to really focus on. And I remind myself, of course, of this too. The author then says that sometimes, or many times, it can be even harmful. Meaning, if I don't care about akhlaq, I don't apply the teachings of akhlaq, and I go and study fiqh, I go and study aqa'id, he says this will be harmful to you. Yes. How will it be harmful? He says, because number one, as they say, knowledge is power. If I go learn fiqh, Quran, aqa'id, hadith, al-kafi, and so on and so forth, if I go and learn these sciences, the author says that knowledge is power. The more you have of it, the more you will be inclined to feel arrogant. Correct? Why are, they usually say rich people, wealthy people, they're more, inclined to be arrogant than poor people, because they have power, they have money. Someone in the government, usually arrogant, sometimes, arrogant. Why? It's because they have power. Knowledge is power too. When you have knowledge, this is power. And with it comes arrogance. So how can I offset that arrogance? You need akhlaq, a science that teaches you to be humble. Don't think that because you have knowledge, you understand more than others, that should make it okay for you to be arrogant and disrespect others and feel better than others. So without akhlaq, unfortunately, brothers and sisters, this is a golden rule, that if you study other sciences in Islam without akhlaq, you will feel arrogant. You will feel arrogant. This is, every teacher tells us this in the house. So that's number one, why we need akhlaq. And without akhlaq, these sciences that we learn, these Islamic courses that we take, they could be even harmful, not just not beneficial, they could be harmful, and they'll make me into an arrogant person and I won't even know it. The second reason, as we said, knowledge is power. You see, if you don't have piety, self-discipline, if you haven't purified the nafs, and you give it all this knowledge, what can it do? It can misuse it. Knowledge can be misused. I could use this knowledge to misguide people. What's going to stop me from doing that? Akhlaq. Once I learn akhlaq, arfan, likewise, I learn taqwa, piety, to fear Allah. I purify the nafs. Once the nafs is purified, it won't it won't want to misguide anyone. But if there's no akhlaq and there's this corrupt soul and I just feed it with knowledge and knowledge, I could use that knowledge to misguide people, to take advantage of people. Unfortunately, there are some scholars throughout history in modern day who have taken advantage of people. They've misused their knowledge because there was no akhlaq. They didn't learn akhlaq. They didn't apply it. And that's why they say a scholar with no piety, with no akhlaq, who has a sick nafs is very dangerous, brothers and sisters, because he can cause great damage with his knowledge. There's nothing to stop him from that because he has not purified the soul. That's why there's a poem in Arabic that says, لو كان العلم من دون التقى شرفا لكان أشرف خلق الله إبليس. The poem says, if knowledge by itself was a virtue, without piety, without akhlaq, then you know who the most virtuous person would be? Iblis, the shaitan, he's knowledgeable. He was there thousands of years ago. He knows all the prophets. He has to know religion in order for him to, counter religion, in order for him to attack and destroy religion. He has to know so much in order for him to cause damage. So if knowledge by itself was a virtue, Iblis has so much knowledge. But why is Iblis the epitome, the example of evil? Because he had no piety and no akhlaq. He hadn't purified himself. Arrogant. Remember, the whole ordeal started with his arrogance. I'm better than Adam, so on and so forth. So unfortunately, brothers and sisters, this is one of the pitfalls of knowledge, of Hawza. Many students, they come, and I see them here in Qom. I'm sitting in Qom right now. And inshallah, I am not amongst those students. They come, they study everything. MashaAllah, they're brilliant, they're very dedicated. But they neglect akhlaq. Or even if they take those courses, they don't try to implement it and build those qualities. And you see, the more they study, the more knowledge they have, the more arrogance they have. The more arrogance they have. And this is a problem that you find in Hawza. So brothers and sisters, this is my humble advice to all of you. And this is the advice of all the prophets and all the imams and the author of this book, Sheikh Muhammad Mahdi al-Naraqi. He says, without akhlaq, don't waste your time going after any other knowledge, because it will only make you arrogant and you may misuse it. You never know. Now